Hello, Wavers. Welcome to Waves on Air, the podcast of Waves Magazine. Today, we're very, very fortunate to have with us a special guest, our Waves Magazine food editor, Tom Valliere, who's going to discuss with us the development of the fresh seafood market here in Galveston. And we're going to do that right now.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's indeed an honor to be here and work with you on our very first podcast series for Waves Magazine. I guess it was about 8 years ago when you first approached me.
8 years.
And, we discussed starting a restaurant review column for the magazine here in Galveston, recognizing that one of the first questions anybody asks when they get to the island is, where's a good place to eat? And maybe the second question I get just as frequently is, where can I get some fresh local seafood? Mm-hmm. And that seems to be on everybody's mind nowadays, and it's a simple question, but it's a complicated answer. And I think that's one of the reasons we can have this podcast, is to fill everybody in on what exactly is happening. And we can start off by talking a little bit on statistics. Obviously, seafood consumption in the United States has risen quite dramatically in some categories, even though statistics show as many as 40% of American families never eat seafood at all. So the growth comes from a relatively smaller segment, and that segment is becoming much more discerning in what they're eating and where it's coming from. Sustainability, I think, is on everybody's mind nowadays. When we break down the seafood consumption in the United States, we find that over 60% of the total seafood that comes into the U.S. is imported. And that figure rises to 90% when you start talking about shrimp. And
I don't think most people are aware of that.
No, I don't think they are at all. But 90% of the shrimp consumed in the United States comes from overseas, primarily from aquaculture and farming. And, of course, that opens up another whole can of worms, if you will, relative to how sustainable that is and best practices. We all envision this stuff swimming around in a mud puddle somewhere in Southeast Asia.
Right.
And in some cases that's true, and maybe even worse than that. But in other cases, these foreign aquaculture farms are quite advanced, quite modern, and are producing a quality product. And that product, there's a need for that product, and there's a home for that product, and it's not necessarily bad product at all. Some of very high quality, flash frozen. You probably most people wouldn't be able to distinguish it from fresh local shrimp in some cases. In other cases, the quality just is not there.
It's substandard.
It's just substandard.
Absolutely.
And the only attribute, the only interest people have in it is the fact that it's cheap. Domestic shrimp production has fallen dramatically. It's been in the news. The Louisiana fishing industry is suffering. Our local fishing fleet here in Galveston and surrounding Galveston Bay is struggling also. We're struggling with higher fuel costs. We're struggling with environmental regulations that handicap American producers, things like turtle excluder devices that other nations don't have to worry about, all contribute to the fact that domestic shrimp production is down and prices are up. And we hope to reverse that. There's a lot of groups here in Galveston behind the scenes that are working with the legislature. They're working with different industry groups and restaurant associations.
Right. And like we talked about, we're going to have some of those people on here with us in future podcasts.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's important that people understand that we've got some really brilliant minds and we've got some smart people that are working very hard to make sure
right here in Galveston.
And through Louisiana also, that are working hard to make sure this is sustainable, that our grandchildren, great-grandchildren can enjoy the same fresh, locally harvested seafood that we do. This is going to talk primarily about shrimp, but the same things I'm talking with shrimp are relative to the finfish also. The red snapper and sustainability of the harvest and the different things that are going on there. It all ties together. Fortunately, I guess shrimp are kind of like mosquitoes. I don't think they're ever. I don't think you can ever overfish them.
A little better flavor.
Well, of course, a better flavor. And a better texture.
Yes.
So when we look at where these shrimp are coming from that are coming offshore, India is the biggest exporter of shrimp to the United States, followed by Ecuador, and then Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand, and they produce a lot of it. The problems with that are relative to the quality of the entire process, because most of these are farm-raised shrimp. And there's issues with disease, there's issues with water pollution, there's issues with habitat destruction between water pollution and destruction of very important mangrove forests. It's created quite a lot of newsworthy items when people actually see what they're doing and the amount of antibiotics that are, and residual antibiotics that are in some of these products that are coming into the country. So when we talk about locally harvested shrimp, we know what we're getting. We can go down to the dock. We can sit at Katie's happy hour and have a cocktail, and we can watch them come in and unload these shrimp. And hopefully the pelicans will save a few for us. But it's something that makes me proud to be a Galvestonian and see that we carry on these traditions that our forefathers and our ancestors did.
And we're going to touch on that too, Tom, I think, in a second podcast of where you can find and what restaurants support locally owned and fresh seafood here on the island, so we can steer a lot of people in the right direction.
Absolutely. And when we talk about that, and of course, I'm a proponent of the local restaurant association, supporting our local businesses.
That's right.
You can get a quality seafood meal from the large chain restaurants, but it's probably not locally harvested. And the reasons for that, the large chain restaurants have to supply many locations, sometimes hundreds, maybe thousands of locations across North America and even foreign countries. And they have to have a uniform menu so that, when you buy a shrimp dinner at Denny's in Kokomo, Indiana, it's the same as buying shrimp dinner at Denny's in Oxnard, California. They have large central purchasing organizations, and they're looking for volume. They have to have sustainable, predictable supply. And it has to be year-round. And typically, it has to be frozen because they have to ship it and hold it in many different locations. And of course, they're profit-driven, publicly owned companies, so they're constantly under pressure to source in not necessarily the cheapest, but get the best value for their operation in their restaurant. So, and they ship these out, and they have central menus, and they have portions predetermined, and there's just not much that the local restaurant can do to vary from the corporate recipe to make sure that you're getting something different.
And there's really no ownership on site at those type of establishments. And one of the things we love, and we do at Waves, is we feature our locally owned businesses. And many times you go right in the door and there's the owner to greet you and say hello and come around. And I think it makes a big difference as far as quality is concerned.
It makes a big difference, not only in quality, but also versatility and, flavor nuances and, different things.
Yeah.
We recently had lunch together, Michael, and we were at a local restaurant that specializes in high quality, locally caught seafood. And I remember that you queried the waiter and, I like this on this menu, but could I have it a little bit differently? And could I do this? And could I do that?
That's me.
And instead of, fried, can I get it black? And instead of Pontchartrain sauce, can I get,
Yes.
And these restaurants may not be happy to do that, but they'll certainly accommodate you.
Yes, they certainly do.
They can. The chain restaurants can't. They've got a format and a formula.
No flexibility. What you see is what you're going to get.
That is absolutely correct. And for some people, that makes a big difference. Some people, they're just looking for, can I get in and out and get, 6 quick shrimps and beer? Other people, want to really take some time and enjoy their meal and relish not only the ambience of the restaurant, but also the quality of the offering.
And that's what we see too, Tom, thanks to you, is we have a very in-depth food section in each and every issue of Waves magazine. So we've got thousands upon thousands of foodies that are interested in the entire experience. They're not looking for quick in and quit out. They're interested in food and how it's prepared and where it comes from. And that's This podcast is one of the things that we can do to really address that situation.
Well, food's always been much more than just food. Okay,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
right.
human bonding experience.
That's
Right.
right.
We socialize over a meal. We break bread. We toast wine. There's rituals there, and there's a lot more to it than just what's on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want really good value, you want to really taste the flavors of Galveston, then I think it's important that you get out away from the chain restaurants, get into the neighborhoods and
Support
heritage
local
restaurants.
business. Support our locally owned business.
Absolutely. And that runs the gamut from, a white tablecloth dinner at a leading restaurant like Guido's, or if you're just going to grab a basket of shrimp and a quick meal at Shrimp and Stuff. There's a lot of places from high-end to whatever price point you're looking for here on the island that you can get what you want.
Okay, super. Well, I think we've got off to a really good, informative start here, and I want everybody to stay tuned for episode 2, and we're going to go into more details of exactly where you can go and where you can find this locally harvested seafood and shrimp. Look forward to having everybody with us and hang around for episode 2. Thank you, Waivers.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.